Show when everyone wins, where a key goal I have for you is shifting from power over and under to power within and between. I'm your host, Judy Ryan. In each episode, I'll share my knowledge from decades in workplace culture transformation and leadership development as the founder and CEO of LifeWorks Systems. I'll help you build trust and emotional and social intelligence. My show, When Everyone Wins, is about creating a life you love and helping others do the same. Welcome to today's episode, everybody. Today's episode is called Creating a Culture Where People Stay and Thrive. So creating such a culture only happens when it's consciously created. Leaders have to adopt conditions and cultivate conversations in which people build trust, collaborate effectively, think critically, and move from self and social awareness, which we call the cupcakes, to self and relationship management, which we call the vegetables. Rather than focus on holding others accountable, everyone in the workforce focuses on how to hold themselves accountable to create the relationships they want, the productivity and engagement that they want, and the progress that they want. The kind of culture needed today to meet current speed of change, complexity, new technologies, diversity, globalization, and tons more requires that leaders commit to providing the best concepts, terms, tools, and support processes so that people feel a healthy sense of belonging and that they're significant. And when they do experience that, they stay in an organization because they want to. This is the only way that they're going to show up and thrive by themselves and as a collective team. This is the only way that the organizations thrive also. This is win-win. Together, everyone and everything grows and remains stable and booming emotionally, socially, financially, and even spiritually. Now is the time to examine these conditions specifically and how they foster success so that the how is made obvious and can then be replicated so that we can breed further success in other organizations in similarly powerful ways. That's why I've invited my special guest, Doug Less, on my show. Doug is out in the trenches. He's applying what he's been learning overall in his many years of experience in lean and agile, and from his training in the LifeWorks Systems Culture EX Transformation Certification Program. He's been learning and applying what he's learning in his work. Before we get into that in greater detail, let me tell you a little bit more about Doug Less. By the way, if I could have named Doug, I would have named him Doug Moore because he's amazing. Doug Less is an energetic and relentless lean agile business transformation coach with a passion for helping organizations navigate their journey to agility since 2002, 23 years. As a safe practice consultant trainer, SPCT, he has been an integral part of multiple large mission critical agile transformations since 2014. He regularly works with executives and leaders to apply lean and agile principles at scale, driving innovation and delivering true business value. Doug believes in cultivating psychological safety and building cultures where people don't just adapt to change, they become the catalysts for sustainable transformation. Doug's coaching approach involves applying compassion. Oh my gosh, he's got it in spades. Humor, flexibility, and creativity to navigate some of the most difficult transformation situations and motivate people into doing amazing things. Welcome to my show, Doug.
Thank you, Judy. Thank you very much.
I'm super excited for us to help people have the how.
Yeah,
So I'm going to dive in with some questions. If we go all over the place, that's okay with me. So,
very good. Very good.
so what are some of the things you've learned through the content and the immersive process in the LifeWorks Systems Culture EX program that creates loyalty in people and that helps them thrive? Can you tell our audience a little bit about that?
Sure. First, just to go back, to the immersive part. So, Judy and I met a couple years back, and did a whirlwind tour of the program, and probably retained about 2% of it. But the immersive process, I mean, it has really helped me a lot because one of the things that I keep going back to, I used to be a Daniel Pink guy and people wanted autonomy, mastery, and purpose, but I find myself now going more back to the four core needs framework, right? It's beyond just empowerment. I never really thought about, people need to feel lovable, like valued for who they are, right? And we all know the connection, but then, making meaningful impact and contribution. So that's really helped me in my interactions, doing strategy work. And you mentioned in my bio is that a lot of what I deal with is psychological safety, right? People being disconnected, disengaged. So now that I've had an opportunity to be immersed in like a lot of these tools, your redirect process, healthy venting, right? All these other tools, right? All these structured ways to address conflict, right? The challenges, people being able to, raise issues without fear or dismissal. That's really what it's about for me is the immersive part for it, the tools, the technology, I call it arrows in my quiver, right? Give me so many more things and so much more capability to build the cultures that I know will thrive in lean agile environments. So I appreciate that. And that's really what I've helped do is kind of trying to move that needle from compliance to ownership, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah. Well, I really appreciate that answer. And I want to just tap on something that you said there. You talked about the four core needs, which I think a lot of people don't realize are so important because we all crave feeling a sense of empowered, feeling seen and heard, which is lovable, connected, and contributing to be able to contribute. But you kind of said, well, connection we kind of all get, but we don't realize sometimes how much baggage we bring to connection
mm,
that has us coming in expecting negative things. I have this person that I'm thinking of that started a new job, and she said, nobody seems very friendly to me. I don't think they like me. They invited me to happy hour, but everybody was kind of in their little cliques. And I said to her, I said, would you be willing to try something? And she said, yes. And I said, would you, when you go to work tomorrow, when you walk in the building, just say, oh, I love it here. I love this building. I love this company. I love these people. And everybody you see, just in your heart, say, oh, I'm so glad to know these people. And she called me that night and she said, oh my God, it was like a totally different
yeah,
company.
yeah,
People were being so nice to me. And I think we don't realize how we come to a connection with sort of negative vibes, and then people react to those negative vibes, even if it's kind of unconscious. So I just thought of that as you were saying. It is kind of a given. We know connection's important, but we don't realize how much we kind of bring negative or positive.
yeah.
So
And something you're saying there too, tapped into, one of the lessons is, assuming positive intent. Right. That's almost tattooed on my skin, right? Is whenever I go into a situation like that, a new situation, new transformation is I want to assume that positive intent that everyone here is wants to do the best that they can, right? No one's I don't initially go in with trust barriers as I really want to go in with that trust, assuming that everyone is here to make transformative change. We all want to feel like we're contributing. So,
yeah, yeah. I love it that you're intentional about having that positive idea of people's motives, but I think a lot of us don't. I remember one time hearing somebody speak about how and why we walk into elevators and then everybody just looks straight ahead and doesn't say anything to anybody.
mm,
Because maybe one time we were friendly, somebody didn't treat us well, so we're afraid to be friendly and say, "Hey, good morning, everybody. Hope
yeah,
you're having a good day." It really made me aware of how unconscious we are about assuming the worst.
yeah.
So tell me and the audience a little bit about the things that you've seen that have made people disengage and leave organizations, because I know that that's been a challenge in the agile and lean work that you've done, and what you believe now, knowing what you know, what could be done about these things.
Yeah, some things that, looking back, I thought a little bit about this and like, what are some constant things I see? A lot of it is old legacy behaviors. I call it like Tayloristic command and control and micromanagement, right? That's one of the things I have to battle right away is I've seen talented developers, testers, coaches who quit because their manager required daily status updates, approval for every decision, right? I I go back to Theodore Roosevelt, what did he say? He said the best leader is the one who can has sense enough to pick good people to know what needs to be done, and then the self-restraint to keep from meddling with them while they do it, right?
Oh,
So,
wow.
I love that quote. I had to write it down. It's on a post-it here, but it's that whole, hire great people, let them be great. Stop micromanaging, stop getting all up in their business. Uh, give them a problem to solve and let them solve it. So I see a lot of that, and that's what we're trying to do. And so having clear defined outcomes, right? Making sure that people understand their outcomes, give them the autonomy over how it's done, and you know, give them the chance to experiment and fail, right? And it's not a bad thing, right? It's like we all have been there. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
you know,
I hope you'll send me that quote because I don't
yeah,
think I've heard it. And I love
yeah,
quotes.
yeah,
We always say the healthiest leaders create other leaders.
yeah. I mean, another area where I see, people become disengaged or leave is, because a lot of what I do is in the software development realm. I see a lot of just these people become part of teams that are just meaningless feature factories. People doing work, but they aren't connected to a larger purpose or impact. And in a lot of places now, it's a combination of full-time people and contractors. And the contractors start to feel like just a number with no understanding of how their work matters. So really a lot of what I do through your tools is help people see their contributions to the bigger picture and really connect their daily tasks to their organizational purpose. How they even write out their requirements, making sure that those requirements are written with true users in mind to connect these developers and testers to actual users, give them a name, give them a face, give them an identity to connect them so that they really understand what they're doing. I just call them meaningless feature factories, and we don't want that, right? We want people to exercise the scientific method, right? To form hypotheses, to test those hypotheses, and really given the freedom to do so. Because
Yeah.
a lot of times, if we just dictate to them a solution, we may not even find the best solution.
Right. Well,
So,
what it strikes in my mind, and I'm pretty sure you're also aware of this, is it's about the intrinsic motivator
yeah,
of sense of meaningfulness. If you
yeah,
don't have a sense of why what you're doing matters, it doesn't feel that important to you. It is meaningless instead of meaningful.
yeah,
And
100%.
and it also reminds me of the fact that we lead everything with purpose as the priority of a life well lived, people that are confident and resilient and loyal to the company. So you know that I kind of hammer that.
Yeah,
What is your purpose and why is it important to know it? And why
yeah,
is it important that we know we cause things with purpose? And why is it different from what we do and how we do it? So, can you share why you or what you think about all that and why you think purpose might be really important and why it must include everybody, including ourselves?
yeah.
Excuse me.
Yeah, and this is awesome because that was probably the one of the hardest things to do in this immersion process was writing that purpose statement because I'm probably like a lot of people and I get trapped in that what I do, having my purpose be defined by what I do. Like, I do consulting, I do facilitation, I do transformation work, I do change agent work. And really, it took me a while and some gentle nudging from Judy to say, it is about what I caused to happen in people's lives. And that was hard to think about. Like, so how do I do that? How do I build my purpose to where it's about other people, right? And the mark that I want to leave basically with the world. And, what is it what I do to others? And that's really what it came down to. So, I mean, worked a lot together. And so I think, I hammered and hammered and hammered on my purpose, to where it's like, I want to be the key that unlocks joy, vitality, and peace in everyone. And that's really what I want to cause to happen in people's lives. And I think it's kind of cool because this is what we work through is when I'm aligned with that purpose, my work then, the things I do become energizing rather than draining, right? My
Yeah.
relationships thrive at home, at work, in the community. And, it's it's not a self-interest thing. It's a broader thing than that. So
Yeah,
it's a big part of that.
you've been super faithful to that. And hopefully you will remember it's not only others, that it's also you. Because if
Mm,
we can't feel those things for ourselves, then we have to turn that light on ourselves. But I also know that it's really a switch
mm.
to go to why we do something, not how we do something or what we do. But you have been really good at realizing the importance of then going to the values, then going to the visions, then going to the goals. Can you talk a
Mm.
little bit about that journey? Because that is really different. Most people jump in at the goals level.
Yeah, and I'm still working through the goals because it's like, to me, it is starting at that top down. And then I wanted to say, okay, if I do that, then what are the values that support it, right? So I've got a whole series of values that support it. And those values are a blend of, both what I do and what I cause, right? But it's really helping fulfill that purpose, lots of things in there that are really how do I, promote joy, vitality, and peace? What are those things that I do? Being authentic, things like that. Is I want to, if anything, if I leave a situation, it's like, hey, he was incredibly authentic, right? Transparency, authenticity. You mentioned in my bio, right? I mean, I want to have fun, right? I mean, if it's not fun, if it's dry, it's really hard. So that's where that vitality comes in for it. So it's like all those values support it. And then now I've worked on now that I've got those cemented, it's a lot of work to say, now what are my goals? Now that I have these things, how do I want to then apply them to, I look at, again, the multiple aspects. I want to look at it from my spiritual life, from my personal life, and from my work life. So I really look at those three major areas to say, what are my goals and vision in those areas? Um,
Yeah. And Doug, what I notice about you is your curiosity causes that in me
mm,
because you ask questions and you really fully engage and you put everything into it all. And it makes
mm,
me feel more vital and alive and joyful. So it really makes a difference when somebody does that. So that kind of leads me to a question that I struggle with sometimes, but I wonder what your take on it is. What is it about a responsibility-based workplace culture that is difficult for people to sometimes either understand or even say yes to?
you know, that's a good one. So, I think when we hear the word like responsibility, some people can see that as responsibility. They kind of can tie that to accountability or blame, right? They can say, "Oh, now you're going to put all this responsibility on me," right? And that's not what it's about, right? In reality, it's about giving people the tools and safety to own their own outcomes. But I think a lot of people hear that responsibility and immediately go to accountability. Am I going to be evaluated on this? Am I going to be measured on this? And that's not what it is. It's about bringing the responsibility out of them, right? Most people are conditioned to wait for direction, then take
Yeah,
initiative, but we're trying to bring the other out of it, right?
yeah,
Moving them to like what you said, self-directed thinking. When they've been in years of just tell me what to do.
yes.
And so I think that's a big challenge is that when we talk about responsibility based, we're really talking about bringing this out of people, not just putting another thing for them to do on a checklist. We're really trying to pull out that intrinsic motivation, right? And make that at the forefront of it. And
Yeah, I mean, it's really, you're really talking about people being afraid of their power, that power within. And so they'd rather have somebody do power over them or
yeah,
under them so that they can feel in control that way, when being responsible for ourselves is actually putting the control and the power back in our own hands. So it's interesting how we've been conditioned to almost be afraid to pick it back up again and trust it.
yeah,
That's what I see. And people are afraid that that means I'm going to get in trouble, like you said,
yeah, yeah. I'm
right?
going to get in trouble if I don't take responsibility, I'm going to be in trouble. And that's not what this is about, right?
No,
It's getting them to own their outcomes, right?
right. And to feel proud of their power and feel good about using it and all
Mm.
and know how to be supported in it.
Yeah. And leadership to support them in self-directed behavior, right? And to not and not at any point in that journey for them to become self-directed to again power over on them, right? Is
Yes.
is yeah, because as soon as they do that, then they're, people will tend to spiral down, right? And
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I noticed it. You've mentioned self-directed. I'm so conscious of what that means. Would you tell the people that are listening, what's the difference between a person who is self-directed, where they know what they feel and what they want, and the behavior and the attitudes and the feelings of the people that we call other directed? Can you help them understand that since you've got
mm,
a nice new view into that? And
uh,
don't worry if you don't remember it all. I'll help you with
yeah, yeah, yeah. Trying to remember all of that. I mean, that responsibility chart is a big deal, but I'm trying to picture it now, but I'm probably
Remember
gonna
that
ask for a lifeline.
when we're in other directed, we're really believing that the authority is in someone else's
Yeah,
hands and that we don't really have freedom. We don't have choices. And so we either resentfully comply and act like a victim, or we rebel and resist and act like mean-spirited. And so, what you're talking about with self-directed is when we're not doing any of that.
yeah. Now you've hit those tickler items there. Yeah, absolutely. Like when we can get into that victim mentality and yeah, and people. You mentioned people resisting, right? I mean, that's a lot of people resist change, right? Because change is hard.
Mhm.
But what is it? Why are they really resisting? Is it because of some past conditions, or is it because they've never been given that opportunity to, exercise self-directed behavior?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've
And
had
and,
people
and
tell
being and
me,
really being given not just being given the power, but do they even understand what that means, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've had people in their 40s and 50s tell me, I've never asked myself, what am I feeling and what do I want?
Yeah.
Because it wasn't a common way that they were raised to consider themselves that way.
And it's like how journaling can be so powerful too, right? Is
Mhm.
gratitude journals and talking about what do I have, where was I self-directed today, right?
Yeah.
What
Exactly.
choices did I get to make today?
Yeah. Exactly. So, in the model of being a responsibility-based culture where there's thriving and there's loyalty, we always say that trustworthiness is foundational and that means having a 10 with everybody that you work with. And what does that mean to you? And how does this contribute to loyalty and thriving in your opinion?
Attend to me means I'd say like complete authenticity and trust. Right? That's really what it is. Is no hidden agendas. Oh, I can't stand fake people, fake personas. You know, I want people to do what you say you will do, and then I'll support you in doing it. Right? It's like that's really what I want is do what you say, be authentic. Um, I like collaboration and experimentation. I think in a thriving relationship, thriving environment is you're willing to collaborate together to take on risks, be vulnerable, be open to like, hey, your idea, let's merge ideas and come up with the best one. I want to see everything as a learning experience and build on each other's ideas. That's really what a thriving relationship is to me, is when we're learning from each other and, not to be too spiritual, but the whole iron sharpens iron, right? And we're growing from each other. You're learning something from me and maybe gaining some wisdom. I'm gaining some wisdom from you. And we're leaving the situation both better people because of it. That's
Yeah.
really what 10 relationships are to me, is we're both giving and receiving in equal portions.
Yes. And to have that giving and receiving and that sense of safety, people need to be able to resolve anything that is not resolved. A
Right.
lot of times people think a 10 means you have to go to lunch with them and be best friends with them, and that's not necessarily the case. But it's being willing to not ignore if something is broken in the trust.
Yeah, I mean, in these days and age, 90% of my work is done over Zoom, right? I mean, I'm not in an office. And I've had to deal a lot with that because I like the interaction and human interaction with people. So it's like, I'm not going to lunch with these folks. We're not even hanging out at the water cooler anymore. So it's like now I need to seize every opportunity, that is presented to me to show up authentically at these meetings and into, we can't have unresolved conflict. It
Right.
just, right? Because it's pretty easy to demonize someone when you're not face to face.
Yeah.
So really easy to judge and demonize. So I mean, I have to let go of that, and I have to make sure that I'm addressing that. If I feel like I left a Zoom call and there was unresolved conflict, I don't want to let it linger, right? I want to make sure, okay, I need to schedule a follow-up, an after. I need to make sure that, hey, are we cool, right? You know.
Yeah, and sometimes it's conflict, but sometimes it's just, I need more information from you. I need you to share more, or I need for you to recognize something in me that you haven't been acknowledging, or it might be that I need you to follow through on something, and
Oh,
we're not even
absolutely.
at conflict, but we're not. There's things that are need to be said. I remember Jack Canfield would ask his wife every night, "Are we at a 10?" And if she would say no, he'd say, "Well, where are we?" And she might say, "Well, we're at a 7." And he would say, "Well, how can I get it back up to a 10?" And she would say, "Well, you didn't take out the trash when you said you would." So they weren't necessarily in conflict, but he was committed to resolving anything that was unresolved every night so that they could start with a truly clean slate. And that's, a lot of people think, well, that's nice, but I don't want to have to do that. But if we don't do that, it becomes pretty awful pretty quickly a lot of the time.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
Doug, you learned that when we're people pleasing and we're trying to pretend everything's okay, that's fake. And you said, I don't like fake. I like
Yeah.
authentic. And we call that pseudo community. And I look at that as a way people do power under.
Mm.
And then you also know that when we get tired of that people pleasing and we start seeing those differences and they start bubbling up as resentment, we can kind of switch to power struggling, which, is us trying to say you're wrong and I'm right and I got to change your mind, and that's kind of like the whole power over thing. So, can you talk about what you learned about what we call empty and caring community and how these tie into trust and authenticity and the things that really create the loyalty that only happens when we have caring community?
Yeah, I mean, it's the opposite, right? When people avoid conflict, like you mentioned earlier, I mean, when people avoid conflict and they don't want to deal with it and it just lingers and builds up until eventually it boils over, or they have that pretend harmony. Oh, yeah, we're just all getting along, but there's like no real sense of collective ownership, right?
Yes.
Right. That's what feels empty to me is when there's no authentic engagement. People aren't sharing ownership and outcomes, right? They're not. That's when it feels really empty to me. It's when people are saying
Yeah.
me and my tasks, not us and our contributions, right? When
Yeah.
it's all about I got my work done. I hear that all the time in some toxic agile teams is I got my work done. Well,
Right.
what about let's think about this. Like we and the work are all one, right? That
Yes.
that whole idea is we and the work are all one. So it's not just about you and your task. It's like how do we create that community where like I want to lift you up. In my first question or my first statement in a daily sync isn't, hey, here's what I accomplished. It's like, hey, does anybody need help? Right? It's like
Yes.
I want to approach it. It's like, how can I help us move this thing to a state of completeness? How can we get this stuff done? Let's get her done. What do we need to do? Like I'm letting go of, oh, I'm just the developer. No, I can contribute in other meaningful ways, and I'm actually being way more authentic, and and it's not people pleasing. I'm truly being in harmony when I'm saying, how can I help you?
Yes. So you're building trust that doesn't happen in that pseudo community and in that power struggle. It only happens when you recognize that other people have valid reasons for needing things
Yep,
and
yep,
thinking a certain way. You have curiosity about them. You tell them how you're doing, So you're open with them and you're showing that respect and that service, and that builds that sense of I matter to this other person. And that's hard for people because they haven't really gotten past that power struggle a lot of the time. And so you also, when you were talking about what it looks like to have care and community, it reminded me of what we say real team is. Real team is not just everybody focused on a goal and getting it done. Like, yeah, it is get her done, but you're talking about how can I help you be wildly successful,
Yep.
which is about the other person. And that's huge because I think we don't realize how much we rob ourselves of joy by not focusing on helping everybody be wildly successful. I was one of those people that was all about proving that I know what I'm doing and I can do it, and I lost the joy. I didn't get the joy out of
Yep.
making sure that everyone else was successful.
Yeah, and from a leadership perspective, it's selling them is you'll when you see that authentic community, you'll actually get more stuff done. I mean, I've seen that high performing teams. I always I keep on my hand 5 people that are part of high performing teams. And what is the difference between those teams and the other teams is that they do have that authentic community, right? Is they lift each other up, they support each other. I can even remember on a client did an experiment where we took a team of I'll call them average B players, right? They weren't the best, right? They hadn't been there forever. They'd been there a while, but they knew their work. But they had been working together for probably 2.5, 3 years as a group. And then they decided to take all their rock stars, right, and form a team, right? Bring a team together, all these rock stars. And they gave them the same problem. That team that had that authentic community, I mean, it was like 4 times as fast to solve the problem.
I
Right?
love
Because
that
yeah,
on so many levels, Doug, because first of all, when you start separating people and thinking of them as the rock stars, it kind of reminds me of that story of the laggers and the spurters.
yeah,
We start lowering our expectations. But what you are also saying is that their sense of community is what made them the superstars, even though they weren't typically thought of that way. That's
right.
powerful.
Yeah, I mean, they were much stronger together than they were individually. I mean, we proved it, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it was like it was, you know, logarithmically different in terms of just
Wow.
how much faster that team that had that authentic community versus the team that was, trying to avoid conflict and trying to
Right.
pretend harmony, all that. They just weren't there, right? Just
Yes.
so they had all those, there's power over, power under, all kinds of things happening with that group because they all thought they were, the king of the hill or
Yeah.
queen of the hill. And
Yeah. Some of the most powerful things I've ever heard is when somebody that is not considered a superstar and the people in the company start saying, I never thought they could do that much. Wow, they're surprising me. Like I didn't know that was
yeah.
there, and also just I remember during the pandemic, there were some companies that had to pivot very quickly to being fully remote.
Hmm.
And they wrote me and said, because we have such caring community and we're so authentic with each other, we're not having any problems with that. Even though it's stressful, the strength of the relationships and the teamwork is so solid that it's not been the big deal that it has been for other organizations. So I love that story. I think we don't see enough of it for people to realize that it's worth it to put in the time. It's not a nice to have, it's actually a profitability
Oh
factor.
yeah. Yeah.
And
Profitability,
productivity and all
predictability.
of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Efficiency. Yeah. All of
Yes.
those itties, right? All of
Yes.
those illities. Yeah.
Yes.
Can
So,
can be benefit from authentic community.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So one of the things I was working with a client yesterday, and I could tell that there were some us against them between the staff and the authority figures. Even though they had
Mm,
been through the training, we had to kind of come back around again because they had some new people there, I think, too. But we teach that in order to manage, be leading anything, whether it's being a parent or leading a project group or just leading an idea, that the first relationship you have to manage is yourself, of course. Everybody kind of
mhm.
knows that. but then it's the relationships they have with authority figures. Can you talk a little bit about how that has, you know, how what that has meant to you and what you've learned from that?
Uh, yeah, that was a big aha moment for me I think you really hit home in this immersive thing was, when we start to look at those, the different trust factors and the things about yourself, and you start to look at relationships being a 10 is, I can think of every time I did the relationship evaluation exercise, it's the whole, you can't manage what you don't understand about yourself, but nearly every time, it's the same trust areas that I feel I'm missing from others that are the same trust areas they're missing from me.
Oh,
Right?
wow. So you
So
could
it's
really
like,
see the connection.
yeah, so it's like that kind of self-awareness that happens in there is, if you don't understand yourself and what, that was a real thing is like, I can really look at the trust values and say, oh, this isn't what I'm getting from this person. But then to really take the introspective look to say, what aren't they getting from me?
Yeah.
And to realize that 80 to 90% of the time, I have check marks in the same things.
Yes.
And so, then I'm like, am I just projecting my stuff onto them, or are they just projecting their stuff onto me? Right? We really have to come to that, oh, what I'm wanting from you is actually what I should be giving to you. And that's probably where we're off. So I really comes back to I really want to model the behavior I want to see. So
Yes.
it comes back to that, and I realize that I'm probably triggered by some of the same other people are triggered by the same things that trigger me in a lot of these relationships that aren't tens. So it's like
Yeah.
that's a huge thing for me to actually have walked away from this immersive experience to say is that did I really understand myself? And looking at all the different tools that we bring into that, our profiles, our needs, our wants, and then again, circling back to purpose, right? If I look at those values, I'm like, am I, there's a connection between the values and the purpose. So it's like, and anytime I'm not doing one of those trust things, anytime I'm not understanding myself, right, or not bringing my authentic self to something, I'm really out of line of my purpose. So,
Yes.
and
Yes.
I was just surprised at how many times, I think of some of the most difficult relationships that I've had in my life or continue to have here and there. A lot of times it's like, oh, I'm not being straightforward. I'm expecting them to be straightforward, but they're not, but I'm not being straightforward with them, right? I'm actually in that place where, I'm not being true to myself, right? I'm not being true. I'm in pseudo community with them, right? Right?
Yeah.
I'm pretending harmony, but but by not addressing the, you know, being straightforward. But I'm
Yeah.
expecting them to be straightforward, right? So it's like, yeah, it's like
Yeah.
that's it's a nice I look at it, it's a nice mirror, right? There's
Yes.
the values that build trust are a great mirror. Am I looking in the mirror to say, do I truly understand myself in this situation?
Yeah. Yeah. Do you ever have any thoughts on like any authority figures, whether it's your customers that's paying you or the consulting company that's hiring you, where you have an issue with the authority, like that eighth grader had with the homeroom teacher, and that was maybe scary or difficult? Because I know that's always the hardest one for me, but I'm getting pretty good at it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's I don't have it so much anymore, but yeah, there was a time when yeah, and whether it was intimidation or, are they going to see me for my true self? Right? Do I have to put on a like and I always think like when I initially am with a client, like I'm out there seeking to understand, I'm doing a lot of listening. But I'm just like at some point, right, I have to remember I'm being brought into this situation as a change agent to not just let status quo go forward. It's to actually say status quo isn't getting you to where you need to be. That's
Yeah.
a lot of what we do. And so these tools are fantastic in that is to say, look, you like this is what I'm seeing. This is what I'm observing. you have expressed this is where you want to be, but your behaviors aren't in alignment with, where you want to be. So let's truly talk about that. And I'm dealing with that right now is I really had to have the conversation just this week. I kept going back to these people are like, look, we want to be better at this. We want to be better at this. And I'm providing them more and more and more tools to be better. But at the end of the day, I'm trying to create the conditions, but they have to choose it. So I'm finding myself this week, I asked a lot of times, are you willing? Are
Yeah.
you willing to do the hard work to get to where you want to be?
Yeah. And
So,
I
so
hear you saying you do it whether it's the authority figure in your life or the peer in your life or the people that are directly reporting to you as the guide in all of this. Sometimes it's hard for people to realize that they have to get really good at managing relationships with the people that have power over them in a conventional model. Like somebody that's afraid to say something to the boss because what if I lose my job?
right.
And yet we teach people that if you want to be effective in your life, you have to learn how to relate, get those relationships right with those authority figures. Because if you don't, you won't be a good authority figure. So I think what I'm hearing you say is that you are learning how to do that or have been doing that with everyone because you're more committed to being in service to the truth and to help being helpful than whether they like what you're saying or not. Would that be an
Yeah,
accurate?
yeah, that's totally true. I learned, I've been doing this, like you said, for 23 years, and I've been, as a hired at will coach, transformation and strategist, and I can get let go at any time. Right? So it behooves me to lean on the truth, even if it's a hard pill to swallow at times. But again, it's bringing them back to, I find myself asking that a lot. Are you willing? Are you willing to commit to this? Because I don't want to waste my time and I don't want to waste your time. If there's something more important that you think you need versus this, culture change things, well, let's have a conversation about that, right? And
Right.
talk about what are you willing to do? Where can we move the needle in your organization? Because, if I, and I've learned that now. I mean, if I can't get the leaders to buy in, there's no way anybody beneath them is going to buy in, right?
Right.
Because we are learned in kindergarten, we follow the leader. So like
Right.
I don't have that. It's not a conscious fear anymore. It started out like when I was first doing it. Oh my gosh, I'm here in front of a C-suite, a board of C-suiters. Right? I need to watch my P's and Q's, but I wasn't being authentic. Right? So
Right.
so now I'm like, okay, I hear what you're saying. Others have felt that way before, but I think what you'll find is this, and are you willing? Right? Are you
Yes.
willing to do that's been my theme this week is I had to write it down is are you willing to do the hard work
Yes.
necessary to implement the change that you want to see in this particular part of the organization?
Yeah, you're not afraid to ask for the commitment,
Yeah.
which is sometimes scary when you're speaking to somebody that has more power over you, technically. But there is a sense of respect that comes with that because they can feel when you're not doing it out of rebellion or to be, snarky, but you're doing it because you want the best for them and they can feel that. And they feel that you're fearless about you matter more to me than whether I'm safe, and that's what I hear in what you're
Right.
saying. And a lot of people struggle with that. They like to manage themselves, but they don't like to manage those relationships with the leaders. And that's where you end up with an us against them dynamic. But you've been able to create that cohesion, which is probably why you get kept on jobs when other people get let go,
Yeah, but
So
yeah, I've had a pretty good reputation that way, and I think it is because I mean I want to create that authentic connection to say like, uh, you know, again at the end of the day, I want to add value, right?
yes,
And if just like going back to those four, four motivations, right? It's like the four areas is, I want to feel like I'm making a difference to them, and if I were to shy away from a tough topic, I'm not doing them any favors, and I'm
right.
certainly not adding the value that I think they expect from me, right?
Right. And you're doing what we call firm and respectful at the same time, which is
Yeah.
a really important combo. So, one of the things that we talk about is the importance of caring about how we use our power and being conscious of what we cause other people with our power, which is social interest. I was recently on the show speaking with the guy that ran the Unlocked on Netflix, where they, gave power to these inmates. And what really turned the key, and it's in every company as well, is teaching people to think about what their power is doing. What is it causing? So, what does this have to do, in your view, with thriving, with right use of power, with people being loyal and wanting to stay? This idea that they have power that they can use to cause things.
Yeah. I think we've talked about it, but that community or that interest is like you mentioned it before, but that caring about the impact that you have on others, right? That's a big thing for me. It's not just self-interest, it's caring about the impact on others. I mentioned the story about, the high performing teams that their first question is, how can I, what roadblocks do I need to clear for you to make this as successful as possible? Right? That's the idea. It's not just self-interest. It's how do I clear the way for you? How do I, you know, what's the smallest thing I could do or the biggest thing I could do that would, you know, make your day as successful as possible? And so
Yeah,
that when we get together 24 hours from now in our daily team sync, like what you report is success. So how do we get there? So I think that's the that collaborative creation, where we're creating power between people, right? Where we're actually creating a win-win effect, right?
yes.
Sustainable solutions come out of that. Um, but I think anytime people are exhibiting like dominance or or just submitting, like you keep mentioning, like when we just submit to authority, right? We're really not creating win-win dynamics. We're creating win-lose dynamics. So
Yeah, if we all know that we have that kind of power to create consequences, then we'll use it for the good, no matter
yeah.
who's got the title. When my kids were growing up, I remember when they would have an argument or something, I would say, "Well, how do you think that what you just said or did made your sister or brother feel?" And it was that caused them to look at, wow, I caused something.
Yeah.
Because otherwise they're just into blaming instead of looking at, oh, I caused this. And it's not easy for people to look within for that power that's within them. It's more easy for them to say, I see that person's power and how they're using it against me, but I'm not seeing how I'm causing something too. And
Right.
so I love it. I mean, yes, it definitely is coming into meetings and thinking about others, but it can also be, how am I hurting others,
Yeah.
as
Did you
well.
notice that when you did that, everybody just kind of went, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And
Well,
people started
but it did
disengaging.
make them think. It really did
Yeah,
make them think, because I
yeah,
wasn't lecturing to them. I was asking them a question and they're
yeah,
like, all right, you're right. Yeah, I
yeah,
see. I see. I don't want to see, but I see.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Let's rewind this back and let's see what what happened, what consequences came out of that.
What do you think you made happen? You're so powerful. What did you think made happen? You made happen.
Yeah.
So we talk a lot in our work, as you know, about mindset and how it matters as much or more than tools for creating that kind of workplace where people want to stay, where it creates those positive feelings. So why does mindset matter as much? And it reminds me, Doug, of the peace pledge. Like, we can use
Yeah.
any good tool, like a sledgehammer. So what are your thoughts on the mindset part?
Uh, to me, I think mindset is there. It goes back to, I'll go back to 2001, right? When the work of Agile first became mainstream, started to become mainstream. And there's this whole difference between doing Agile and being Agile. And being Agile is a mindset. And I think what we don't give people credit enough for is they're pretty smart. People are pretty doggone smart, and they can sense authenticity versus mere technique, right?
Yeah.
So I think mindset is what, creates the intention behind any kind of tool, any kind of training, any kind of knowledge, agile methodology, whatever the case might be. Because if you don't have the right mindset behind it, people are going to feel manipulated. You're
Mhm.
just bringing in this new thing, and I feel manipulated. It's just like with any of these tools. If I don't feel, if I didn't have the passion for psychological safety that I do, when I talk about it, it would come off as unauthentic,
Mhm.
right? So it's like I think that internal shift is what is going to create the motivation. It's what leads to sustainable change and ultimately behavior modification, right? It's like, and if you don't have that mindset, it's going to come across as just technique. It's not
Yeah.
going to come across as I'm really, truly interested in getting you to a responsibility-based place, right? I'm really interested in that. I'm really interested in you being more and more self-directed. But they have to see that, and you're not going to see that if your mindset isn't right. You're just going to be putting on a charade, putting on a dance, and it's not going to be seen as authentic. So I think that's where mindset matters. It's
Yeah, it's
because
the difference
I have to
between
care about this. I have to truly be passionate and care about this, or I'm just a puppet, right?
yeah, it's more about performing than it is about a relationship
Mhm.
if you don't have the mindset right. Now it's just telling people what to do or not to do, as opposed to this is what I want for you and this is what I want for me, and being able to be in that really mutual relationship with people. So I know we're getting close to the end, but I want to just ask you, what is the best experience you've had in creating thriving and loyalty in the people that you've directly influenced, including in the certification program? What is the best experience you've had in that?
Yeah. To me, I mean, I was kind of setting myself up there a bit, but like it's going into that being agile versus just doing agile, right? Is I can't tell you that the number of places in the last 20 plus years that I go in, and it's what we call cargo cult agile. They're just going through the motions, right? That's what everyone is doing. They're going through and they're facilitating ceremonies, but they don't understand the deeper principles and the deeper values. Everybody's just doing compliance, they're checking boxes. There's really no team-driven commitments. And the coaches that are there, that have been there, they're just focused on doing the processes right or the procedures right rather than truly embodying the values.
Mhm.
So when I look back, and I think about now that I have these tools, I realize that a lot of these coaches were operating from other directed thinking, waited for the next training or certification to tell them what to do, right? Wait, what does the procedure say to do? And they really lack the confidence and really the competence needed to address these team dynamics, to do difficult conversations. And so I really think they were missing that contributing need. They couldn't see how their role created meaningful impact beyond, hey, yeah, everybody's doing the ceremonies right. Everybody's doing these things right.
Right.
So,
I
yeah.
love what you're saying, Doug, because what you're saying is to create a culture where people stay and thrive, you have to open your heart, you have to have a relationship with people, you have to live from your values, not just from your headspace. It is your headspace, but it's your head and your heart. It's the whole person. And that includes being intentional, living from purpose, living from values, caring about yourself, but also caring about other people so that you have a healthy individual approach, but also a healthy teamwork approach. And I see all of that in you, Doug. That's why I'm so excited to know you and to see what comes next with you and to hear about what you do next in your work. So I just want to thank you as we wrap up. I want to thank you for being a person that in my life and in my work, you've created a culture where people thrive, where people stay, because you show up with all the values that build trust, and you show up intentionally, and it makes all the difference in the world. And I just want to thank you for that.
Uh,
And I hope that our listeners are inspired by the things that you've said today, because you always inspire me.
Thank you for that. Yeah. Thank you so much for that. Yeah, this is exciting. This is fun. Yeah, it's never a dull moment when we talk about these things. So I truly appreciate that. So.
You've been listening to When Everyone Wins, where we're shifting power over and under to power within and between. I'm Judy Ryan, your transformation talk radio host. Tune in each second and fourth Monday at 9 a.m. Pacific time to learn new concepts and tools, and listen to conversations I have with thought leaders and change agents. You'll also see real-world applications of what I'm covering so that you experience the power of the concepts and tools I share. In each episode, I bring you my knowledge from decades in workplace culture transformation and leadership development as the founder and CEO of LifeWorks Systems. I invite you to call in with your unique stories and questions. The path to ensure that everyone wins depends on our ability as people to create a life we love and help others do the same. For more information, visit lifeworksystems.com.